This presentation will focus on the medieval period from 1066 to 1485. The medieval period begins officially with the arrival of William the Conqueror. The Normans can trace their ancestry to the Vikings of Scandinavia. Centuries before they came to England, they settled in northern France and developed more refined lifestyles and language. William, the Duke of Normandy, felt he had a rightful claim to the throne of England. In 1066, William the Conqueror, also known as William the Duke of Normandy, and his men defeat the then Anglo-Saxon king, King Harold, at the Battle of Hastings. This begins the Middle Ages, or the medieval period. The Norman influence. The Normans came from northern France, and they had adapted the French language. Many of the words they bring over to England at the time come from the French language. They also bring over their culture and social values and establish a feudal system in England. The feudal system in England. Under the feudal system, the king is at the pinnacle of leadership. The king will grant land to lords or higher nobles, and the lords would then grant land to vassals or lesser nobles, knights, or even members of the clergy. Knights protected the king, lords, and vassals, and then serfs were peasants that were bound to the land. Knights and chivalry. Knights followed a medieval code known as chivalry. Under this code, they swore loyalty to their king and their lord. They also committed to proving themselves through a unique act of service. They also demonstrated courtly love toward a lady of the court. Chivalry has influenced medieval art, culture, and writing. Women in medieval society. They are celebrated in chivalric stories known as medieval romance. However, they had limited rights and were expected to be subservient to their father, brothers, and husbands. They were usually limited to household or child-rearing roles in medieval society. Some popular medieval romances include Le Morte d'Arthur, or The Death of Arthur, Tristan and Isolde, and Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Here are some major events that helped shape the cultural landscape and the social landscape of the Middle Ages. The Crusades took place from 1095 to 1270, and these were a series of holy wars between the Middle East. The death of the Archbishop Thomas of Becket of Canterbury in 1170 was also of important significance. We'll learn more about this as we study the Canterbury Tales. The Archbishop of Canterbury was the highest clergy member in England. King Henry II had Archbishop Thomas of Becket murdered because Thomas took his role seriously, while Henry II hoped to exploit his role in the clergy for his own gain. In 1215, the Magna Carta was drafted. This established a ruling body in England, and it lessened the power of kings. Some major events also included the Hundred Years' War from 1337 to 1453. This was a war between England and France, which brought instability to both respective nations. The Black Death took place between 1348 and 1349. This was when it was at its peak in England, and it wiped out 1/3 of the population of England. The War of the Roses took place from 1455 to 1485, and this was a civil war for the throne of England between two noble families, each represented by the sigil of a rose. Medieval romance. This is the genre that we're going to focus on as we explore the Middle Ages. The most famous medieval romances are the stories of King Arthur and his court. A medieval romance focuses on knightly adventures and often knight's quest to obtain knowledge or glory or prove himself through noble deeds. They also often have supernatural elements. The romance that we will focus on is Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. In the story, a supernatural figure, the Green Knight, visits the court of Arthur and challenges the court to a Christmas beheading challenge. Sir Gawain, described as courageous and honorable, accepts the challenge. He goes on a quest to complete the deal he makes with the Green Knight. The story itself is rich with nature and color images, and it follows the motif of the quest and a chivalric test. As you read, consider Sir Gawain's heroic attributes. How does he compare or contrast to the hero Beowulf? How are symbols used throughout the story, and how does Sir Gawain change or transform as a result of his journey?